in about the last 10 years.
Okay.
So it's all the evidence is pointing to, as the planet is getting warmer, there are more negative impacts on our ability to live. But fuck it. I suppose if you're a billionaire, you can afford to get away with doing all this shit.
Well,
And
this
we
starts
are
affecting
live.
other things.
I was going to say something quippy, but I'd forgotten what I was going to say. That's not really very good for the start of the show. So, Matt, would you like to sing us in?
I would not, but after a few beers in a karaoke room, I might.
But I heard that this is your new career model, professional karaoke singer. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
I can make the rounds.
maybe not. Hello, we are Pixel Pints. We're the only global podcast that talks about two things that we enjoy, which is good beer and video games. We're not here to promote drinking. Please drink responsibly. Please play video games responsibly. And just be nice to one another. Yeah. And interrupt Matt at every possible opportunity. He deserves it, the scumbag. And I think he's frozen, so that's funny.
No, he's not. He's fine.
You can follow us on social media at pixel_pints on Twitter for the time being, possibly. Is Threads any good? Is Mastodon? Mastodon just sounds odd to me. Sounds like the name of Mastodon's the name of a metal band, isn't it? So every time someone says, hey, "Oh yeah, I'm on Mastodon," I just think they're listening to metal.
It's starting to remind me of the time frame of, we had like MySpace, and then it transitioned to like there was a war between being on MySpace or Facebook, and then there was a war between being on Facebook and Twitter. We're about to get into another war of like which social media reigns supreme.
I don't think so though. So Threads is adopting the ActivityPub protocol, which is what Mastodon uses, which is what a lot of other stuff uses. I think it's going to be. This is an interesting time for social media. There's going to be a lot more integration.
Is anything related to social media actually that interesting? Speaking of which, you can also follow us on Instagram at PixelPointsPod. We archive nearly all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com and search for Pixel Pints. Mitch, how are things in LA?
Things are okay. I apologize if I sound a little funky. I just got a little bug, but not COVID. Testing negative for it, so just aware of the sorry throat season. That's basically it. So sorry.
No, I thought you were going to say it's either for California at the moment. It's either drought, extreme temperatures, or smog.
Well, I thought so. This can happen. Like sometimes this happens to me when like I have a fan on at night and I sleep, and then my mouth is open. It just like dries my throat, and then it ends up like making me have a little bug for a couple days. This is probably what it is, to be honest, because yes, it is hot here in LA, so my fan is going at the highest speed possible, and it's potentially I just rolled on the wrong side of the bed in the middle of the night last night and had my mouth open sleeping, and all of a sudden dried everything in my throat, and now just got a little bit of a bug to get over.
Hopefully you didn't swallow any spiders. Matt, how are things in Las Vegas?
What are you talking about? They're great in protein.
Not too bad. A little hot, but nothing we're not used to. Hopefully not eating any spiders in my sleep, but apparently that's the thing that happens.
It's an urban myth, really.
I really want to record myself sleeping to see if I ever ate a spider. Like that.
It's mainly all made up. It's one of those things that someone just said and enough people believed.
/ scared their children to close their mouths while they sleep.
Yeah, what they should be more focused on is getting their children to chew with their mouths closed. Because that's disgusting. As much as children are normally disgusting, if you're in a restaurant and you've got a table with kids sat next to you, and then all you can hear that's not ASMR. I don't know what the opposite of that would be, where you actually want to, I don't know, plug your ears up, or I was going to say something terrible. Slap the parents. Uh,
I'm all for all those options. Slapping random strangers. How could that possibly go wrong? That could only go right.
Hey, with television content being at the lowest it's ever been, it'd make a great show.
What else? What else is going on? A lot. I'm today the disembodied head of me because
All right, I have to ask.
got a white background and a white t-shirt on.
I have to ask, because it's that time of year, fellas.
What?
Are you seeing Barbenheimer?
Barbenheimer? You mean Oppenheimer, the movie?
No, someone's did a mashup of the two.
You've had wow, Matt. Where
No, I
have
don't
you
know
been
about
sleeping
this.
under a rock? They literally took
have, yeah.
Barbie and Oppenheimer because they premiere on the same weekend and called it Barbenheimer because people are doing double screenings of one of Barbie and one of Oppenheimer, or one of Oppenheimer,
Jesus.
one of Barbie. It's a whole thing. I determined I would do Oppenheimer first, then I would go to a screening of Barbie because I don't want to start a party of fun and then end on deep thought and
Nuclear Holocaust.
yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
All right.
But are you seeing either film or both films? Are you doing the Barbenheimer experience? What's your thoughts on these?
I'm not a movie guy really. So if it comes out on one of the streaming platforms, or I can reasonably get a copy easily online. I
That's
might watch
Matt's
it.
euphemistic word for I'm going to torrent it.
I'm gonna bootleg this shit through my VPN.
I have absolutely no interest in a Barbie movie whatsoever. That can fook off. Oppenheimer, I've heard, is meant to be really good. I would potentially, but the thing is, it's so expensive to go and watch stuff at the cinema here.
Same
So
in
what
LA.
would it be? For two people, it would be $40.
Yeah, for us it's like $50 for two people.
And that's if you don't get any popcorn.
Yeah, that's just the tickets. And that's for the standard seats as well. So if you wanted recliners, it's more like $50.
Oh wow, you're paying way more. Okay, that's $50 for premium screen for us, like for two people. If you're going to like a regular screening with recliners, $24.
Yeah, we're getting gouged. And that was even before Brexit, because that's gone really well. I'm fine, by the way. Thanks for asking. Shall we get on to beer talk?
Yeah, I think you might be the only one with beer. It's a little early for us.
That's probably because you're still drunk from Friday.
Actually,
Last Friday.
Last Friday. Yeah, I didn't really drink last night.
Yeah, because you were driving. Well done. Don't drink and drive. I have Tiny Rebel Pineapple Express IPA.
Very cool.
And this is 6.2% ABV. There's basically no bitterness to it whatsoever, but it is quite opaque. And there's hardly any carbonation. But it's really good.
Fruity.
You get pineapple, but also kind of citrus, but it's also slightly sour. And it's really creamy. So it's almost like you're drinking an ice cream style pale ale. This stuff is really dangerous at 6.2% because you could quite easily hammer about 4 of these and then fall over.
Nice.
And then I have Asahi Super Dry.
I thought I saw that's what you were drinking. I was like, "There's no way." He didn't care for Yakuza that much.
No, it's okay. I know people that like to buy into the brand of Asahi, but it's the only reason I got it is because it's on special offer in the supermarket at the moment.
Okay. It's kind of like a dry. It seems like it's a very dry lager.
It's not even that dry. I've had much drier ones.
Yeah.
I just think it's whoever did the branding for it, good job, because it's a distinctly average lager.
Okay.
Is anyone drinking Alani this morning?
Have a ton in my fridge, but no.
I'm not.
I
I'm not shocked and appalled. I'm shocked and confused.
I've been going off the not doing energy drinks in the morning now. Been doing that for about 3 weeks now because I don't need it anymore.
So you're just snorting coffee grounds instead?
No, I just don't drink any energy drinks in the morning at all, and no caffeine in the morning. Before, like, because I used to do it in the mornings because I need to wake up to like be able to get used to waking up early to go work out. But now it's built in my body, so I don't even need it. So I've been off of caffeine in the morning for like 2.5 weeks. So
Okay.
So you don't wake up shaking anymore?
no, I never was shaking. I was waking up with bursting with flavor. That's what I was. But now I just burst with flavor at
I really hope that's not a euphemism for
1:30.
something.
Oh my god. Now I burst with flavor at 1:30. That's my Alani time.
Yeah, just when things are dying down, you're getting that kind of post-lunch lull at
Yep.
work.
It's literally when I finish eating lunch, I need the pick me up to make me through the rest of the workday.
Right, since that's everything from us, shall we get on to this week's topic? Which I thought I'd bring up for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to slag off Starfield.
Okay.
And two, I've been watching the episodes of Accessibility that Laura K. Buzz has been doing. And also I watched I went back and watched the Accessibility Showcase during the summer game thing majigger that she arranged. And it got me thinking, because basically Starfield has no accessibility options.
None that they
At all.
announced.
Well, they basically said now that the only accessibility option that they'll have is the size of the subtitles.
Oh no. They did say larger text.
Yeah.
So everything in the UI will be bigger text. They didn't say how big. They just said bigger. Because Todd
but
Howard's getting older. It's just for him. He's getting older. He needs to be able to read that shit.
But it just made me think how basic a option is that for such a big, high-profile game. And I've been playing some smaller games recently, and so I've dipped my toe back into The Ascent, which is this cyberpunk isometric twin-stick shooter / RPG. And the UI is tiny, and there is literally no way of changing it.
Yeah.
When I played through Marvel's Midnight Suns, you can change the UI font size, but it's still tiny. So it just made me think that should there be a standard set of accessibility features across games from now on? And I'm not talking about some of the things that certain game developers are doing, which are basically including full audio descriptive descriptions
Cutscenes.
in your entire game, so that people who are significantly visually impaired or completely blind can play through a game, because everything that's on screen will be audio described. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what is the base level of features that every game should adhere to, particularly in the AAA gaming space. And one of the interesting things that I heard from a piece of research that I can't remember who it did, but Laura K. Buzz brought it up, was that over 70% of all gamers leave subtitles on in games when the default option is to have them on, and over 50% turn them on when the default option is to turn them off. So even a feature that is included to help people who don't need it like having that feature there.
Yeah.
I thought it would be good to have a chat around. Obviously, Mitch is the global force behind everything that's happening with Sony on accessibility. So having this topic come up is probably great.
That is not true. There's a lot of people that work on accessibility.
Yeah, and we just need you to give you probably another year, and they can all report into you. Matt, before we get into this with Mitch, what's your take on the kind of current state of accessibility?
Well, it's kind of funny because when you brought it up, I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, right? I'm gonna be the guy that's like, back in my day, video games, the accessibility was a cheat code, you know. And then I realized, like, no, I like large font. That's like the base minimum that somebody could do is just make the fucking font larger.
Yeah, I can't read the font. It's a feature. It's a gameplay feature. I gotta be able to read
seriously,
that font.
that is the one main gripe that I have with most modern games is the damn font on the UI is just too tidy.
You know what made me think of that? Like, whenever you guys say like big font, you know what game comes to mind to me every time when someone says that? Think of Dead Rising. The subtitles are the tiniest thing I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't even read them as a child, and I was standing like this close to the screen. Like, I think the developers even said, like, yeah, that we tested it on too large of televisions. And it's like, yeah, you did, because you done goofed.
Yeah, the thing for me, when I was playing through Marvel's Midnight Suns, is I just got a distinct impression that this was designed for people to play on PC, where you're sitting maybe 1.5 feet away from your monitor, not 6 feet.
I feel like there's a lot of games like that. Yeah.
The Ascent being the other one, because you can turn the font size on the Ascent. You can increase the size of the font for subtitles. You can't do it for the UI. So you can put a background and change the font color for the subtitles. You can't for the UI. So it's just thinking, why did you do it for this one thing, which you're not going to be looking at outside of a cutscene, which is already bigger because it fills up the whole of your screen? But you didn't do it for the elements that you're going to be looking at. Like, I don't know, you're trying to level up your character's skills, but you've got to lean into the screen to actually try and figure out what the stat boost is going to be because you can't fucking read it. No, that's partially my rant over for the time being. There'll be more later in the episode.
I mean, okay, so one standard, if you were like, what needs to be across the board? Large UI and large font. I think we all can agree on that. It's that,
and more than 200%, because like that seems to be the max that a lot of them will let you do.
Well, so it doesn't really go by percentage, but so like text needs to be at least 36 size font as a standard. That's just your standard font. Like, it should not be anything smaller than that. And then you should have a large HUD option. You should be able to remap controls of any game. I think that should be a standard.
How dare you? Nintendo's masterpieces are masterpieces for the very reason that you can't remap anything. God,
right? Yeah, you should be able to remap any button. That should be a standard if you're talking about Triple AAA space. So, button remapping. There should be things like complete audio customization in regards to what you're hearing. Whether you want to turn down music, whether you want to turn down gameplay audio, whether you want to turn on dialogue, or you want to turn down other sound effects.
There's good. One for me, which is a personal one for me. Different color blindness modes.
Yeah, palette swaps are, from what I understand, fairly easy to do.
I am mildly red green colorblind, and so certain colors next to one another will mean that to give you an example, and I understand in this situation why they couldn't have gone as far as some other games, and I will mention the Ascent again because their color blindness modes are really good. I went through the accessibility settings and tried to increase the font size, um, not just for Matt, because I know he's not playing it. But when I went and looked at the color blindness modes, it is really striking how much difference changing the color blindness mode has made the game for me. I genuinely thought, if this carries on like this, I'm not going to be able to play it all the way through.
It's a very dark game too.
It is.
Being able to see your character just in the environment even.
But also, it changes the environment, but it also changes the HUD and changes the UI. So everything is just that much sharper for me now. But one game where I felt like it was actually a hindrance, even though they had color blindness modes in, was Warzone.
Okay.
So they had the three main forms of color blindness as filters, but the community of game players for Warzone found out that one of the color blindness settings was just better. So everyone was using that. So I can understand from a online competitive standpoint, you can't actually change the color blindness modes that much. But for me, it was really difficult when they brought out the Caldera Island map. I couldn't play the game anymore because even with the color blindness modes on, it was just green on green on green.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so if you were on a certain part of the map, I couldn't differentiate between trees and people if they were wearing green outfits. And that just meant that I can't play this. I can't play it if I can't see the other people. Even with the color blindness modes on, and the one that was for me the appropriate one, it just wouldn't work because they can't tweak it so much because it might unbalance the game.
Right.
And make it easier for other players. But it's just thinking, why even bother then?
I mean, this is the tricky part when you're talking about accessibility standard, when you're being like, oh, what should be standard across the board? This is where it gets tricky because the whole point of accessibility is to find out where are the holes in your title based off what type of game you're making. And like, it's not as easy to just say, oh, well, just every game needs a high contrast mode. But it's like, what if the game's color design is actually already has itself a naturalistic high contrast mode? Then you don't need to make one. It's not standard. You don't have to make one. Or something like, oh, well, Keith, you're dealing with like color blindness issues. Well, what if literally a level is meant to have the color palette for one of the appendices of color blindness? It's like, oh, well, that we already covered that in our area in the design. So accessibility features are just meant to help fill in the pigeonholes where design-wise we weren't able to put it into the title to make it accessible.
Well, and then that comes back to the point I was going to get onto, which is, are you designing in accessibility, or are you taking the From Software type approach of this is my artistic vision and completely ignoring other forms of accessibility options that you could include because this is the game that I want to make, and if you can't play it, sod off?
I mean, in hindsight, to be honest, most of it probably is going to be down to budget and time. Like, I bet every developer, if they had all the time in the world, would love to put all the accessibilities in the world, features in, to be able to make their game accessible to more people.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, when you look at the statistics and how many people have some sort of a disability in the world,
1.6 billion.
Yeah. So like, and that of the console market space share is bigger than what people expect. So I would say yes, they would do it if they want to. I think there are a few exceptions of certain developers that would be like, I don't care about it, and that's
From Software.
I'm not saying any names. But
I can say names. It's fine.
I don't. But I just think I think it's down to a time, resource, and money. It's just like how much can you spend on being able to keep working on this title, because these things aren't easy fixes. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Like, it's just sometimes you have to come up with really creative solutions that you've never made before. Sometimes you have to create an entirely new system inside your own engine that has nothing to do with that. That has nothing to do with your current core design. Now there are some things that are easy that you can trying to say stuff without getting like there's like sneaky ways to be able to like design stuff where it's built into your regular system and it doesn't take as long as you think it does. And some things are going to take way longer than you expect. It really just depends on your engine and like how your systems work and what is the problem solving to get that solution.
Well, doesn't it really depend too on whether or not you're adding this stuff after the fact, or if you've just decided that we're gonna have sliders all over the place and we're gonna be able to, tweak these different elements from the very get-go.
Yeah, this is what
Versus-
I mean about it.
Versus we have a complete game and okay, now we have to try and figure out like how we change certain things.
Kind of, sort of, depends.
Yeah, and I think the approach that would have been taken in Sony's first-party studios, particularly Naughty Dog and Santa Monica, you would have had to have taken a accessibility at the point of design. So when we are actually building this game, I'm assuming, because Mitch can't tell us, and he can't even nod or shake his head, but if you are including things like high contrast mode, the rumble features, the haptic feedback features for for speech and things like that, you have to think about that at a very early stage. Otherwise, if you're trying to do that retrospectively, it's going to cost you more to try and build those things afterwards. So doing it from a design standpoint early on and building it as you build the game out is going to be better than doing it retrospectively. Which is why I think certain things, if you are going to take a purist standpoint, like Matt, you were saying early on, so that my only accessibility feature was a cheat code. I feel like some people still have that kind of mindset. It's gradually shifting, but I think by now we should know that most gamers are getting older. The average age of a gamer is now 36. Your eyesight and coordination does get worse with age. So things like being able to change UI settings and font sizes, and there are a surprising number of people with colour blindness. I blame my mum.
How is it her fault?
Because you inherit colour blindness from your mother.
Oh,
you inherit a lot of your eye problems from your mother. Thanks, Mom, for giving me astigmatism in my eyes.
So yes, but so there's lots of elements that could be included, and I don't know how cheaply you can do it, but I do feel like that, and this is why I keep bringing up From Software, not just because of them as developers, but also the fan base. Could you imagine the uproar if Bloodborne or Elden Ring had a high contrast mode so that more people could play it?
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
I don't
playing
think
it on easy.
I don't think it actually would make it that different, because to be honest, being able
But
to
it's not the point that I'm trying to make.
I get your point, but I think you just used a bad example.
Would you like to use a better one of a
Auto dodge button?
Yeah, so one of the other ones which is kind of linked to one of the ones that I would have liked to have brought up, which I'll do now. Thank you very much. QuickTime events. I fucking hate them. If there is a setting to either get rid of QuickTime events or do them as one button press, I'm turning that shit on.
I mean,
Is that
seen.
is that an option in a lot of games? I didn't even
No.
know that.
In the
I mean, I've seen
in
oh, he's drinking. All right, I've seen an option where, like they increase the time it takes to press the button.
Okay.
A good example of one that plays with a lot of different kinds of QuickTime accessibility options would be, what's that one? Not Until Dawn. It's the other one, The Quarry.
yeah, it's Supermassive's games.
Supermassive, that's what it is. Yeah, they have a ton of accessibility options in regards to how they handle the QuickTime events. You can even set it where they automatically do them for you and be like, you can just watch it like a home movie.
Yeah, so
Interesting. Okay.
when I played through A Little Hope, when I did it the first time, I had the QuickTime events on. And they got repetitive and annoying. So when I played it through the second time to get the achievement for killing everyone, I made the QuickTime events one button press, so you didn't have to. So everything was on the A button now. So, but what I did was whenever the QuickTime events came up, I just put the controller down because I wanted them to all fail because I wanted all the people to die.
You know what?
Some of the deaths in that are pretty gruesome.
You know, an interesting thing I just thought about. I wonder if they'll do this for their next title. They'll like spin it on its head a little bit. Is like make it feel truly randomized by even if you succeed, characters die, and sometimes if you fail, characters live. Because I feel as if it like forces a player to be as if they know they're going to survive if they keep doing the button presses correctly. And I feel like they can subvert expectations a little bit by making it feel truly random, or at least judge the situation whether you should do the button press or not, right? Like, oh, I could jump over that thing, but then realize in your brain's like, that's too far of a jump. Don't press the button. And then all of a sudden they stop and prevent themselves from jumping. But if they jumped, they would never make it to the other side and die. So like,
that would be quite good. That would be a good way of, like you said, subverting the player's expectation that you can just basically, because one of the other features that they brought in for House of Ashes and The Quarry was the auto-complete QuickTime events. Mm-hmm. So basically, you can't fail a QuickTime event if you switch that option on. I'd like having that feature there. I'm not sure I'd want to use it because if you've got it on, I'd like then the ability to have it switched off so that you auto fail.
Yeah.
Particularly in a game like that where you've got branching outcomes. So I don't want to have to play through it again, like you said, because if there's achievements where everyone lives and you also complete all of the QuickTime events, everyone lives, basically. I know that's not the case in The Quarry. There are still other factors that can get people killed. But ostensibly, which is a word, if you auto-complete all of the QuickTime events, everyone will live. I'd like to be able to turn it off so that if I want to do a playthrough where everyone dies, it auto fails.
I also would like it to maybe even do when the QuickTime event appears, you can say, do you want to succeed or fail? And that way you can kind of like predetermine being like, I hate this character. I want them to die. Fuck you. Die.
Yeah. Like the bully character from Until Dawn. I purposefully failed their QuickTime event so they die because they were an asshole.
My goal was to save Hayden Panettiere. I failed.
No, I did save.
I don't know if I saved her in my playthrough.
I tried to. She died. I was so upset.
I saved her.
Most of the characters died in mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I saved 3 other people. I was really annoyed because I couldn't go back and save the one where I failed the QuickTime event because I just moved over from Xbox to PlayStation and pressed the cross button
in the wrong spot,
in the wrong space. But yeah, one for me is QuickTime events. If you're going to have QuickTime events in your game, please, for the love of God, have settings in there that you can change it to one button press or auto-complete or auto-fail, or the new one that Mitch has just came up with. Maybe you should patent that one. Have a prompt. So do you want to auto-complete or do you want success or failure?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because some of the stuff you guys are talking about, like I would have never about because I don't dig into the menus like that. Um, and I wonder how many players are like me where they just kind of go in and it's like whatever's given to you at the beginning of the game, that's all you set, and then after that you don't bother with too many options or settings.
I mean,
And
so
then
oh,
and then it's a balancing act, right? Like how long do you take with different menus and settings before you drop a player into a game before they get frustrated with having to deal with toggling a bunch of menus and settings and things?
well, so before this job, holy crap, I just banged my desk really hard. Um, before this job, I would not really go into the menus that often, unless I felt like I needed to for some reason.
Yeah.
I think now with games having a lot of their menus pop up on boot is really helpful. I think it really helps. I think it helps more than people think, even for the people that don't necessarily need it. It helps them know what is available to them, so that if they were running into something, they're like, I really just kind of wished this game had like a hint
Auto
system.
sprint or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of like using the sprint button. Oh, I remember I noticed there was an auto sprint option when they made me go through the menus in the beginning. Also, I think there's just like some automatic things that players just like now after experiencing it for the first time. Things like subtitles. Like I will always turn on subtitles no matter what.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's great if I would always advocate to auto have subtitles on and then have people turn off if they don't want it, because the vast majority of gamers will always use them. But I think there's other like things I would use. And the other example is if I played one similar to the franchise and I've done changes to before, it's really nice to have that menu pop up right away so I can go, oh, I already know that I like to switch these two buttons around because I don't like the combo here. Or, oh, I really like using the auto sprint here. Or, oh, it's like there's just so many stuff. So I think exposing the player to them sooner. I think God of War did a really good job with their boot menu, which was offering generalistic settings option, or do you want to go dig into the accessibility settings, and you could choose which one you wanted to do when you did your first boot, which I thought was really nifty. But at the same time, I think to help expose the player to what's available to them, making sure that, and I know developers spend a lot of time making sure that if you're looking for an option, you know where to find it. You think you know where you can find it when you look up in the options menu. They spend a lot of research trying to figure it out. I think it's also helpful if you double up by putting an accessibility setting not only in an accessibility menu but also in a general space. So like an example would be like colorblind could be in an accessibility setting but also could just be in the display settings. Like, so it's just in multiple locations, so it's more generally exposed. Because then I think eventually, and this might be a hot take, I would love to see the accessibility menu go away and just have accessibility settings built into general settings. Because to be honest, to me, they're just settings that people need, not necessarily for a small group of people. Because a vast majority of people, like Keith pointed out, like he's colorblind, so he needs the colorblind settings. And I think it's unfortunate to put like a category to Keith being like, oh, Keith, you need to be in the accessibility settings. I think the more generalistic we can make it, and the more normal it becomes, and the more accepting people are of it, because it's like, oh, it's just in the general settings. I think part of the issue comes into play is because they're separated by two different types of menus. And that's how people view it. It's like, oh, I don't need those accessibility settings. It's like, maybe you do, actually, because some of them are really nifty.
Yeah, it's good. It's basically saying there's something wrong with you.
Yes. And I don't like that, putting that upon the player. Because also then it turns others off that we need as support, or some people that would actually use it.
How long do you guys think before some of this stuff gets integrated into the first 20 minutes of a game, like the tutorial segments?
the one thing I was going to pick up on something you said before, Matt, which is so when you quite regularly when you boot up a game, certain things happen, which is you'll get a thing about display, maybe the display area to change
Yeah.
the size of your screen,
The brightness, the text
brightness,
size.
text size, things like that. It can't be that much more difficult to include something simply. Say if you do have color blindness settings in your game, don't let the person get into the game before they see those settings.
Yeah, that's how
Say,
important
here's-
boot menus are.
Yeah, so this is the annoyance that I had with the Ascent. It took me probably 3 hours to go through and start playing the game to figure out that, because a lot of games I don't actually need the color blindness settings on, but this one I found particularly difficult just to look at. Until I went into the menus and looked at the gameplay settings and display settings, and then went through each of the color blindness setting to find the one that worked best for me, because you could in effect say, because they have different things, like the opacity is different for the different settings, or it's not different, it looks different to me. So when I change them, you can see which one works best, because, and like I said, I'm not I had this conversation when I was at school, when I told someone I was red green colorblind. So, what colour's grass then? Fuck off.
It's not that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that. It is, at some point, if you blend colours together, I won't be able to tell the difference, which is why I had such a problem with Warzone when they brought the new map in, because everything was just green and brown.
God, how did you make it through the mid 2000s? Every game was just brown.
Well, that's fine, because if everything's brown, it's okay.
It's the tints of green.
Yeah.
That was a joke, but okay.
Yeah, you're just going for the discrimination vote today, aren't you?
Bad vote, Matt. Bad vote.
So in terms of boot menus, there are more things that you could include there to make it easier for people before they even get into actually playing the game. Certain things as well, like save states. If you're playing a type of game where, I don't know, if something's particularly challenging or hard, you could give someone the option of do you want us to save scum for you, or say I think Mitch has brought this up in the past. You've died multiple times here. Do you want us to decrease the difficulty for you? Do you want us to skip this boss fight or something like that to move on with the story?
I do like those. I like when it's integrated with the actual gameplay, where like, yeah, if you die, 6 times, it's like, yeah, hey, we can lower the difficulty for you.
The tricky part about that, though, is like doing it in that way, is that you're not exposing them to the menu, because like maybe they don't need a lower difficulty. Maybe they just need help with dodging. So they just need like a slowdown for the dodge, to prompt dodge button, or
a larger parry window or something like that.
Things like that. So that's one, and then two, you're not exposing them to the menu at all by doing that, and so therefore, if they want to go back and change it, it's like an adventure for them trying to go find the difficulty setting.
Figure where the setting is.
Yeah. And then they may have forgotten that they changed it, and they only wanted it for the boss fight. Like, it's just, I think the more you can expose them to the menu, the better, even though I know in some cases it's a turnoff for players to just like spend time in menus.
Those players are more than likely to be the gamers with a ZTM.
True.
So those people, I think we can all decide can fuck off. Which is why I really like, as much as I don't like Capcom's business practices around microtransactions, what they have done with Street Fighter 6 in terms of the new control scheme has brought a lot more players in who would otherwise felt alienated by that franchise. And that's not classed as an accessibility setting. That's just, do you want to play this game differently to how you would have played it in the past? And they do deserve some congratulations for including that. And I don't think they've done it because of any altruistic reason. I think they've done it because how can we sell more copies of this if we include a different control scheme?
Yeah, it does make business sense for sure.
And this is the thing that annoys me about it, is accessibility is seen as something that's included to appease other people or take something away from the game experience. That's all bollocks. It's there to try and make the company more money by allowing more people to play it.
So this is a random thought, but as much as I don't like always online and DRM, I could see something like that being utilized in conjunction with AI systems to customize the games for whoever's playing it, right? So if you have a server that's capturing all this telemetry, it could potentially go back the other way. Or if you're playing something for a long period of time or whatever, and it notices that you're missing something or you're doing something in a way that was not intended or whatever, it could like recalibrate the game for you.
Just a heads up, like you're running into legal. You're
Okay.
There's these things in Europe called the General Data Protection Regulations.
Yeah. There's also things like you can't collect data on someone to expose a disability. Like if it's exposing someone's disability by turning this on, you cannot collect their data.
Interesting. Okay.
Because that's basically breaking HIPAA.
All right.
So yeah, that's you're right into
Matt's
a lot of legal
idea has
issues.
just gone down the toilet.
Yeah,
No, not really. I mean, if you do it in a
don't
way
bring
that
AI
just
up in here, Matt. Come on now.
If you do,
Too
if you do it
soon.
in a
Writer
way-
strike, actor strike. You're bringing AI up in this shit already? Oh my god. Were you
know,
working?
yeah. Well, if
were you
you-
with the studios? Are you chopping down trimming those trees out there for the people?
if you do it in a way that just keeps players engaged.
No. That's like 50 years from now, if anything. Someone inventing that kind of title. Like that sounds way more complicated than it needs to be.
So I know we're talking about what would our minimum level of expectation be. My minimum level of expectation is growing now. It's partly Mitch's fault, because of the work that he's done, but
Not me.
I'm
Not me.
this guy's too modest. If it weren't for Mitch, Sony's accessibility settings would be shocking. Does anyone
It
from
has
the work watch
nothing
the
to do with
show?
Microsoft and that fancy controller they made.
Oh, that
that's-
crappy one? Just because you're first doesn't make you best.
Well, they can refine it. It seems to be more modularly compatible, but I haven't seen enough about the PlayStation 1 to know. I don't know if you can plug foot pedals and stuff into the PlayStation 1. I know you can with Microsoft One.
Yeah.
They did show off that it does have cables similar to the Microsoft one, where there is available for additional accessories that they own. So yes, it's like 3-millimeter, I believe, is what the standard is for those. So they have not said of exactly which ones are compatible, but I think as long as you're fitting the millimeter cable, you should be good. But not certain.
One thing that I did want to bring up is the I thought of opaqueness, but that's the wrong word. Obtuseness of accessibility settings. Is it one thing that companies shouldn't do is basically is exactly what Square Enix did with Final Fantasy 16. Don't make your accessibility settings so fucking obtuse that people get confused as to what. And there is no need to link accessibility settings to the lore of your game, for the love of God. So them including the ring system, they did it, and there was an interview, and again, this was something that Laura K. Buzz brought up. I can't remember where she got the information from, but there was an interview with some of the developers from Square Enix, and they said they didn't want to lose the immersion.
Oh, is this where you can like equip certain items that make the game easier?
Make the
for
game
you or
easier.
whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This is the ring system.
Yeah, I still have to look it up, but I think you're also misinformed. A really well-known accessibility advocate came out and said that they got the info wrong. They did not say it was an accessibility feature. It was just a way to make the game more approachable. So just be very clear of what they said. They did not call it an accessibility feature. People assumed it was being an accessibility feature. And I still have to like go back and double check like to see to make sure this person was right. But this advocate made a whole apology video because they were like, yeah, I read the story wrong. They were talking about approachability, not accessibility, and that is different.
Well, we can speak to our resident Japan dweller and see if the terms for approachability and accessibility can be easily confused in Japanese potentially.
True.
But in which case, where are the accessibility features in Final Fantasy 16?
There is a couple.
If they aren't.
There's some subtitle stuff. They do have one audio one that is not. I don't see the benefit. It's a nice attempt to try to do something, but I don't see the benefit. It allows you to put sound waves on the side of your screen, and each sound wave is distinct by a color depending on what it is. So it can be dialogue, music, and then other gameplay sounds. And literally as they happen in the game,
it's like a visualization.
Yeah, but the issue is the layers are put on top of each other. So some of them you can't see the sound waves for because the other waves are bigger. And then you can increase the size of what they are on the side of the screen. So sometimes, here, if I can get it on the frame for the show, like sometimes they can go from like just touching the side of the screen like this to being like all the way over here. And then if the sound like whooshes very, very loud, at the bottom of the screen, it'll cover the entire screen like this. So you can't see what's happening on screen. It's just not very convenient. So sound wave. Oh my
sound
God.
Wave. Oh my god! All right, for the audio listeners, Keith just grabbed his Soundwave transformer.
Yes, I have a Soundwave. It is by the side of my screen. I am now the Square Enix accessibility feature.
I just watched the Revenge of the Fallen last night, Transformers movie, which has Soundwave in it.
That's the new one in the Michael Bay.
That's the universe. Second one of the Michael Bay universe. But anyway, yeah, they're all bad. I was just like, I put something on in the background. I mean, okay, they're bad, but the visual effects are gorgeous for that time. I was like, man, this still holds up very well to today. And I think it's because Michael Bay does so much practical, like the explosions and everything are done practically, that it just looks better in so many ways.
Sure.
But anyway,
the man's life mission is to ruin my childhood. So
yeah. But yeah, that's what I was just trying to say. I think the feature doesn't actually really solve a problem. It actually just creates problems. But I appreciate them trying something new and different, but it's just not, I don't think it works.
Yeah. It does make me think, though, is that if you're going to include features to make not accessibility, ease of gameplay better, then you're still being just as obtuse if you get people confused that including certain rings means
Oh
that...
no, I don't disagree. I wish those rings were actually accessibility features you toggled on, because I have them. Like, to be honest, there are too many particle effects in the game to where I can't tell if an enemy is attacking me sometimes, and I get hit. So I decided to put in the ring that gives me the prompt to dodge. Now, does it tell me every time when I dodge? No, because if I'm in the middle of striking an attack, it will not give me the prompt to dodge, which I'm fine with. It gives me some wiggle room of some challenge. It's not very challenging, but... And then I also don't like managing the dog, so I auto-manage the dog with another ring. But now all I have is one ring left, and that's what I can use towards random stuff. And it's just not really... I feel like I'm wasting 2 ring slots, basically.
Yeah, it's an odd choice to me that's how you'd want to approach.
I mean, I give them choices. I will still give them credit, because Japan is notable for having the lack of accessibility. Like, if there's any region in the world in regards to studios that do not think about accessibility in games, it is the East. It is all Japan area. Like Nintendo, those are all Japanese studios. They don't have any accessibility because it's something they don't think about.
Yeah, I think it comes from an old school design philosophy.
That too. I mean, eventually it will change, but like I think it's a culture thing too. Like that's the other part. Is like these people don't think of these studios as like regional, but you kind of do, because depending on where they come from, heavily influences choices they make when they build titles.
Sure, yeah.
But so there's a personal bias, then there's cultural bias, and then there could be regional bias within that. I'm personally trying to wrap this up, because we've been talking about this for most part of an hour. What I would like to see is some of the things that we've talked about be as obvious and as early on as things like brightness settings and what language do you want to play this game in.
Yeah,
I'd like to see more of this stuff included early on, and for reasons that it doesn't make it out to be there's something wrong with you to need these settings. And then his word of the day, in a sense of habituation with the wider gamers community TM, that these things are normal and they're not there to dumb down their games or have taken resource away from making the main game. Another common misconception. Matt, were you just breathing, or did you want to say something?
Both.
Okay. I'm glad that you're still breathing.
Yeah.
So you can interrupt you more.
I was gonna say, I think like one approach to take would be to just start exposing debug stuff and letting players have the ability to play around with that stuff, because I feel like it's one thing to try and focus on like, okay, we need to do this, this, and this to make it accessible for people, but you could just as easily let the community at large sort of play around with stuff and be like, well, this actually makes it easier for me in this regard, but might not be a category.
What do you mean by debug stuff?
So like what would traditionally be considered like debug menus, like where you can toggle on and off stuff that's not part of the normal game. If you just allow players to have access to that stuff, just like I guess
I'm telling you, Matt. I'll just tell you, it's not going to change a damn thing. It actually it's worse.
Like the toggle menu in FPS games, where like you hit the tilde key and you get a drop down, and you can type in commands and turn on no clip or whatever.
Big head mode.
I would
Matt's just going back to cheat codes again.
Matt, I would say your thought of how debug works is flawed extremely, to the point where that is not a solution.
Poor choice of words.
I get what you're trying to say. I think you're just unfortunately flawed, and just because you don't know the information, and it's just I can't say anything more than that. But it's just
Matt, idiot.
But I only say that because you are probably one of many that would say such a thing, and I would say no, that is not a solution. That is definitely not a solution. It would make things worse than better, to be honest.
You utter pleb. So for me, my personal list, font size changes both in terms of, basically anything on screen. If there's any font on screen, you should be able to adjust the font. Obviously, that needs to take into account how much clutter you've got on screen. Not necessarily a accessibility feature per se, but being able to toggle stuff on and off on maps, just to reduce the amount of visual clutter, or to make sure that you are actually focusing on the thing that you want to focus on. It's another bugbear I've got with the Ascent. The mini map in that game, in fact, the map in that game and the mini map in that game are atrocious. There is so much clutter. It's basically impossible to try and find your way around in the map without pressing up on the D-pad all the time. That gives you a little line of where you need to go. Color blindness settings. Unless you're producing a game specifically that has high contrast colors in it, I don't think you should produce a game that doesn't have filters for color blindness, unless you are making it yourself and you can't afford to do it, literally. But if you are a AAA game, you shouldn't be bringing games out without color blindness filters. And I'm trying to think of my last one. QuickTime events. If you're going to have QuickTime events, make sure that you copy what Supermassive have done. And that is my kind of flaw for accessibility features. Everything else you can kind of build on top of. But for me, those, if you are making a game, as a bare minimum, you should have those three. And because of the type of features they don't have to be listed as accessibility features, because the QuickTime events can come under gameplay, and the color blindness and font size and UI settings can come under display or gameplay, or whichever one you want to choose. They don't need to have a separate designation. Matt, do you have a flaw? I know you've got multiple flaws, but on this instance, we're talking about a flaw as in...
Yeah, all on-screen text size. It'd be nice to be able to...
You're easy to please, aren't you?
And audio sliders for like the different audio mixing. Because there's a lot of games
I feel like most games I play have got that already, and I wouldn't really class that as a...
Not necessarily. There's games that I've played where you can't adjust the different levels of different audio.
Some of them are just they only offer like 2 sliders when they should offer like 5. It's really
exactly.
It's not enough customability.
Customization.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
with an S, not a Z. Is it? So yes, actually, Matt, I agree with you. I take back some of the bad stuff I've said about you.
Not all of it, just some.
Not all of it, just some. Because if you think about it, on Apex Legends, I need to try that. I've tried their color blindness settings, but because I've got the same problem with that, not the same, but similar problem with that I do with Warzone, that they don't want to make the color blindness settings so useful that they become advantageous for people in a competitive environment, but
Right.
equally, I find the color blindness settings that they've got not the best option for my personal circumstances. So they've had to take this road of we can do this, but we can't make it too obvious, for want of a better
Yeah.
phrase.
I think it's more
But
challenging for multiplayer for sure.
one thing they do have that I have seen in games is they've got sliders for master volume, dialogue volume, sound effects volume, music volume, in-game music volume, menu music volume. So they've got a whole heap of stuff there. And those are really useful because, again, in a competitive environment, you don't want the in-game music to be really loud because you want the audio cues of other players. So you want master volume to be quite high and you want sound effects to be quite high, but the music volume and dialogue volume you really want to push down because you need those audio cues from other players, and you don't need someone from your team who's just picked up a backpack to start spouting off a line of dialogue.
Yeah.
I still think there's some stuff you need to work on personally, though.
Offline. We'll do that
Offline, yes. Mitch, being the accessibility, would you prefer guru or aficionado?
Neither.
You haven't reached God tier yet. There's still work to be done. What is your floor for?
I have higher expectations. Let's see.
Well, I do as well, but I'm just trying to think of where can we get in that people can't.
No, I get you. I think it's like everything that you guys have said is pretty much like the bare minimum you can do in a title. Besides that, it really just depends on what kind of game it is, and I really can't just say like you have to have it. One thing though, with the larger font, also having changing color of the font is something I would like as well.
Yeah, and being able to put backgrounds on it.
Yes, subtitles should be able to have. You should be able to change the HUD darkness of how dark it is in the background behind the HUD, and then also behind any subtitles. But besides that, no, you guys hit the standard for what I think should be just bare minimum any title.
Right, Matt, do you have anything else to say? Which is what we normally say.
No.
Oh my God.
No, that's
Matt.
wrong.
Oh my God.
Let's
Matt.
try again.
Let's try again. What do you say, Matt, when we end a show?
And on that note, we're out.
Oh my God. It's like pulling teeth from a child.
Actually, that would be easy.
Is this one of your money-making schemes?
Yes. Feed the Tooth Fairy and
Isn't there a no? I was thinking, is there a horror movie about that? No, it wasn't. That was just